Good evening. My name is Wayne Larson. We appreciate, the City of Mesquite appreciates you being here. I'm the Communications Director, and this is a public meeting on the City Charter election. We have brochures on the table if you'd like to take one or some back to your neighbors and friends. It has all the information there about the charter election. We have a brief presentation to make about the proposed changes to the city charter for the election, a brief PowerPoint to show to you and a video, and then we'll take any questions you may have about the election or about the proposed changes to the charter. A couple of just housekeeping items. The restrooms, they're in the lobby there. And we will be, as you can probably see, the cameras will be videotaping this so we can provide the same opportunity for the information to folks that could not attend on our website and through other means so they can be a part of the informational process. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ted Chin from our City Manager's Office that has a brief presentation to make about the election. Ted?
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you all for being here. My name's Ted Chin. I'm the Managing Director of Financial Services. And before we get into the charter presentation, just what a charter is, probably best to give you a little background on what type of government establishes a charter. And this presentation is only going to cover the changes that are being proposed in the election. State law is very specific when it comes to using public resources to advocate one position or another. So this presentation will only cover factual information regarding the amendments. There are basically two types of city governments in Texas. Cities incorporate either as general law cities, and there's several types of general law cities, and then there's home rule cities. And what distinguishes the two is population. Once a city reaches a population of 5,000, the voters, the state laws allow voters to call an election to establish what they call a home rule charter. So when you hear the term charter, it's in regards to our home rule authority, which basically says that the city as a home rule can enact and pass any laws or legislation that it deems necessary, as long as it doesn't conflict with state or federal law. Whereas those general law cities, they pretty much have their powers explicitly stated in the state statutes. Mesquite's charter was adopted by popular vote back in 1953. And since that time, it's been amended 7 times. A total of 53 charter amendments have been submitted to the voters during those 7 elections, and 41 have ended up being passed. And while other charter elections have been discussed, no charter election has been held since 1987. So it's actually been 30 years since the last time our city charter was amended. The way it is amended is couple ways. The City Council may, on its own initiative or motion, propose a charter amendment election, or citizens themselves can call for an election through a petition process of 5% of the qualified voters, or 20,000 qualified voters, or whichever is less. And in our case here that we're going to talk about, the City Council proposed a charter election and created a charter review committee. And that was done by resolution back in August of last year. The committee was appointed by members of each member of the City Council, and they appointed 2 liaisons to the committee and to serve as ex officio non-voting members. And I think those were Councilmember Greg Noche and Councilmember Jeff Casper. The City Council's charge to that committee was pretty specific. They were to hold 5 public meetings, with 1 in each council district and 1 at City Hall, to facilitate the participation in public discussions regarding the potential charter amendments. They met to receive public input, and they were to prepare a report on the sense of the community that contained both the majority and minority viewpoints from those public meetings, and also an online survey that they had conducted. They submitted that report to the city manager on November 30th of last year. Based on that report, the city council approved presenting 8 proposed amendments to the city charter. And the charter election is on May 5th. Early voting, as you can see, begins April 23rd and ends May 1st. And some of the things you may want to consider before you vote is that a charter can only be amended every 2 years. So after this election, we cannot hold another charter election for 2 years from here, so 2020. Each charter amendment may contain only one subject matter, and each charter amendment is voted on separately. So when you go to the polls, each charter amendment can pass on its own. You don't have to, all 8 of them doesn't have to pass for one particular thing to pass. And once an amendment is adopted, it may only be changed by another charter amendment election. We now have a brief video to show you that will go into the specifics of each of those 8 proposed amendments.
Overview of the City Charter election. In 2017, the Mesquite City Council approved a review of the City Charter. The City Charter is the governing document of the City of Mesquite. As part of the review process, the City Council created a Charter Review Committee. The committee held a series of public input meetings. For more information on the City Charter Review process and the Charter Review Committee report, please visit cityofmesquite.com/City Charter. Based on the results of the review, the City Council voted to place proposed changes to the City Charter before the voters. For information on the Charter election, voting dates, voting locations, and more, please visit cityofmesquite.com/Charter election. Early voting, April 23rd through May 1st. Election Day, May 5th. Proposition A, establishing a maximum number of terms for City Council members and the mayor. Currently, members of the City Council, including the mayor, can serve an unlimited number of 2-year terms. Proposed change. A City Council member would be limited to 4 consecutive 2-year terms without taking a 2-year break in service. The mayor would be limited to 4 consecutive 2-year terms without taking a 2-year break in service. No person could serve as a City Council member and as mayor for more than 8 consecutive 2-year terms without taking a 2-year break in service. These new term limit rules would apply to existing members of the City Council, including the mayor. Fiscal impact. No fiscal impact is anticipated if this proposed amendment is approved at the election. Proposition B, City Council structure. Currently, the City Council has 7 members, with 4 who represent specific geographic districts and 3 others, including the mayor, who represent the entire city. All members of the City Council, including the mayor, are voted on at large by all voters in the city, regardless of where those voters reside within the city. City district boundaries are reviewed and adjusted, if needed, every 3 years. Proposed change. 6 geographical areas or districts would be created with 1 City Council member representing each district. Only voters residing within a specific district would vote for the City Council member representing that district. Council members representing a district would be required to reside in that district. The mayor would represent the entire city and would be elected by all voters in the city. District boundaries would be reviewed every 10 years and, based on the results of the U.S. Census, revised if needed. Fiscal impact. If this proposed amendment is approved at the election, there would be an estimated cost of $50,000 to $75,000 in fiscal year 2019 to redraw council district boundaries. In addition, there may be an additional cost of $25,000 to $50,000 if the districts need to be redrawn with any successive decennial census. Proposition C, date of City Council election. Currently, City elections are held in May of each year, and city council members and the mayor serve staggered terms. Place numbers 1, 2, 6, and the mayor are elected in odd number years. Place numbers 3, 4, and 5 are elected in even number years. Proposed change. City elections would be held in November of odd number years, and all members of the city council, including the mayor, would be elected in the same year. Fiscal impact. No fiscal impact is anticipated if this proposed amendment is approved at the election. Proposition D. Minimum staffing level in police department. Currently, the City of Mesquite is required to staff a minimum of 1.5 police officers for every 1,000 residents of the city. Proposed change. The City of Mesquite would be required to staff a minimum of 1.6 police officers for every 1,000 residents of the city. Fiscal impact. There is no immediate fiscal impact if this proposed amendment is approved at the election. However, based on current staffing levels and population projections, the proposed staffing requirement would begin to impact the city's operating budget in 2023, 6 years earlier than the current charter requirement of 1.5, and could cost an estimated $3 million by the year 2040. Proposition E. Establishing a city attorney's office. Currently, while the City Code establishes a city attorney's office, there is no such provision in the city charter. Other officers appointed by the City Council are established by the city charter. In addition, there is no provision recognizing that the city attorney supervises and controls assistant city attorneys. Proposed change. The office of the city attorney would be established by the city charter. The amendment would provide that the city attorney supervises and controls assistant city attorneys. Fiscal impact. No fiscal impact is anticipated if this proposed amendment is approved at the election. Proposition F. Deletion of the one-year contract period limitation. Currently, the charter limits contracts for goods, materials, services, or supplies to 1 year. Proposed change. The charter would not limit contracts for goods, materials, services, or supplies to 1 year, allowing multi-year contracts for goods, materials, services, and supplies. Fiscal impact. No fiscal impact is anticipated if this proposed amendment is approved at the election. Proposition G. Amendments to conform to actual current practices. Currently, language in one provision of the charter creates a potential internal conflict, while other language was created under state law that has changed. Current practices have been established to reconcile the conflict and to update practices in accordance with amended state law. The provisions in the charter addressed by this proposition include the following: City Council voting and meeting requirements, municipal court name, jurisdiction, fines, and authorized officiants, and the appointment requirements related to service on the city's personnel board. Proposed change. The charter would be amended to conform to current practices for the following: City Council voting and meeting requirements, municipal court name, jurisdiction, fines, and authorized officiants, and the appointment requirements related to service on the city's personnel board. Fiscal impact. No fiscal impact is anticipated if this proposed amendment is approved at the election. Proposition H. Technical amendments to conform to state law and city code, to correct terms, to correct spelling, to clarify language, to provide gender-neutral references, and to make other technical amendments. Currently, the city charter contains language that refers to outdated state law and contains incorrect terms, misspellings, outdated or obsolete references, gender-specific terminology, and technical errors. Proposed change. References to outdated state law, language containing incorrect terms, misspellings, outdated or obsolete references, gender-specific terminology, and technical errors would be updated or corrected. Fiscal impact. No fiscal impact is anticipated if this proposed amendment is approved at the election. The notice of election will be available on April 12th at cityofmesquite.com/charter election, which will include the proposed text changes to the city charter.
That's our video presentation for this evening, and as you can see, we refer most of y'all to the city's website to gain any more information regarding the charter election. At this time, we'd be welcome to take any questions that you may have at this point.
One of the propositions that said they want to go from a 1 year, with supplies and stuff, to a multi-year, why the change?
Yes, ma'am, that's proposition F, I believe, which the charter currently limits contracts for goods and materials to 1 year, and the proposed change would not restrict that to 1 year, but allow for multi-year contracting to lock in prices that are more advantageous, that kind of thing. Just common practice that we do now is to have a contract for 1 year with maybe multiple renewal options. This just clarifies things.
Would it be okay would it be okay to limit it to 3 years instead of 1 year, instead of leaving it open-ended? I think that would be a better way to go, because if you leave it open-ended, there's always the chance of a large contract being agreed to, and not necessarily for the best interest of what the contract or what the services provide, but maybe to help out a contractor. So I think if we could do three years limit with the option to renew, I think that would be better. But to put a limit in there, I think would have been better. I understand this thing probably won't change. It's up to me to vote on it if I want to or not, but it's just an idea.
Well, that specific amendment will actually delete the 1 year limitation, which would allow for any term.
I understand, and that's good, because I agree too. I mean, it can be cumbersome to have to go through and renew a contract every single year, maybe, or like you said, or even to have to renew it, go through that process. And so it is better to, in some cases, to have a lengthier contract. But all I'm saying is, don't leave it open-ended and say the most would be 3 years.
At this point in time, the ballot language is pretty set, and so you either vote for or against.
Way late on putting in my 2 cents.
Right.
Who would actually decide, is it just going to be on an individual contract basis as to whether you go 2 years, 4 years? How would that be decided?
Well, if this...
if the amendment passes.
If the amendment passes, the 1 year limitation will go away, but even currently, our practice is the central purchasing office or the department sets the terms for those renewals anyway, so.
Is it procurement that approves or those contracts, the procurement office?
We have a central purchasing office that does handle procurement on most of our large dollar contracts, and that's designed because they have the expertise when it comes to the state procurement laws, that there's a whole myriad of what's covered under different statutes. And
those
so
contracts have to be approved by the city council?
Contracts that are $50,000 or more have to be approved by the city council.
Yeah, and see, that's kind of what I'm getting at is on these, if you have these lengthy contracts or a proposal for a multi-year, 5-10-year contract, so someone submits, and you have, let's be frank here, and now that we're going to have term limits for the city council members, if you have a council member that's about ready to go out, he might say, hey, maybe I can help you get this contract. So, that's all I'm saying is if you leave the door open for these lengthy contracts like this, that can be approved up front for 10 years or so, I think I don't know, it's just, again, I know it's too late to change anything, but that's just my opinion on that.
Okay.
Explain a little bit further about, I understand that we want to try and move the elections to November because it will save us money from having one in May. But why are we trying to vote in all the city council and the mayor at one time? Why did we not stagger them like we are now? Instead of they're going to have 2-year terms, so we're going to have like, if Noche is reelected this time, then this is his last time, but then you have others that they're going to have 2-year terms, or they're not going to be up for renewal in 2 years, right?
Well, we would ask that you go to our city's website to see what the committee that was charged to come up with any proposed changes, what their thoughts were. I can't speak to what that committee was thinking one way or the other.
But wasn't it the city council that finalized what wording went into this?
That is true.
And I was on the committee, and that having everybody elected every 2 years, potentially turning the whole council over at one time was not on the table.
I didn't think it was either.
It was not on the table. And we were supposed to have another meeting after the council discussed all this and get input from the committee, and that didn't happen.
So who put this in there?
Apparently, the city council put it in there.
The committee submitted a report to the city manager back in November, and the city council made the motion to hold the charter election with those 8 proposed amendments. Again,
I didn't have any input on submitting a report.
The items were presented. The language was decided on by the council. The part that Gary said was not, we didn't drill down that far. We just said that, would we have a May or November election? And that is what was our input to the council was. The council put all those words in there.
And it just sounds like to me that they don't want to change it from May to November, and if they put it in there that everybody's going to be elected at one time, that'll deter people from voting yes on this, because they don't want to see maybe some council members, well, their term is up, but they don't have anybody running in their spot. Then what are we going to do?
Talk to your councilman.
yes, ma'am.
How will it save money going from May to November for the election?
I believe the fiscal impact was that there would be no fiscal impact.
Why then in November, if we elect a lot of other officers in November, like president and all this other stuff, why are we throwing the city council in that same mix? Because won't people get confused? Or
Just that they try and get more people out to vote. And if people are used to voting in November, then they're going to come out and vote. And we're going to have our city council voting at that time, where now we have, maybe 2% of our city voting in May, and everybody votes for all the city councilmen. So whoever your city councilman is, if you wanted somebody in your district now, if everybody all over other Mesquite wanted somebody else, you couldn't have that person. It's just, but they think coming in November, or that's the way I feel, that if we have it in November, people are used to voting in November. And, instead of having, like now we have we have November, then we have the May, when was it? No, March election, and then we have a runoff. Then we have the municipals in May the 5th, and then we have a runoff on May the 22nd. So,
It's like to get people out to vote to begin with, and if they have to go vote 6 times a year.
Yeah, the purpose of this meeting is for,
The side of that is you're going to have a lot of people electing council members where they vote for judges.
if I may, the purpose of this meeting is for city staff to give you basic information, not really create a dialogue on the pros and cons. I cannot give you any information on pros or cons, because if I did, that would be a slippery slope, because some of you will hear one message but not another. There's plenty of information out there on the internet that explains pros and cons of all these measures.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question on Proposition B, where you're switching from the current system or format to having 6 single-member districts, and then the mayor at large, whereas now we have 3 at-large positions and 4 council members. What was the reason for making that change?
Again, I can't speak for the reasoning behind what the report, what went into the report. That was a citizen committee appointed by the council, and they gained public input to put that report together. I can't speak to the rationale or what they were thinking at that time.
I see.
I can just tell you what the changes are.
There are videos. There are videos of all the charter review meetings. Okay, we had 5 meetings, and they're on the website, so you can see the discussion that the citizens brought to the committee, and and we regurgitated what the citizens said and placed our own input as citizens also, and gave them to the council. So you could see the rationale and the discussions and stuff like that regarding each of the proposals. Well, not each of the proposals, because there are a few of them that the city put on there regarding the grammar and stuff like that, and we didn't touch the city attorney thing. It was just.
If I may, there are very few people 5 meetings, I think we had a total of maybe 40 some odd people, and a lot of those were at several of the same meetings. At different meetings, same people. So it's very little citizen input, and even then it was like, I think 42 to 58% or something like that. And that's just off the top of my head, but very little citizen input, really.
Where is the early voting going to be? Is it just going to be Lakeside, or is it going to be Florence too? You know?
I don't have that information, but I bet it's on that website.
Okay.
It could be in your packet
No, I see
that was handed
on
out.
election day, we have the sites listed, but not early voting.
Yeah, it's right at the bottom.
It gives you the,
Dates and times.
where does it say Lakeside?
It says dates and times.
Oh, Lakeside activity, okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
Now that the city attorney is going to be official, according to the charter, I'm just curious, will they still be able to practice outside of city business? Or is the city of Mesquite going to be their only client? Or will they be able to, have a private practice outside of the city?
I'll defer to one of the assistant city attorneys here to answer that question.
I'm Cindy Steiner with the City Attorney's Office. That was not intended to address those issues at all, and that would not be changed by this charter amendment. We devote our full attention to our city service.
That's the way it is now.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions I can dance around? Okay, well, we certainly appreciate you being here. And again, please go to our website to drill down on any specific information that you may think of after you leave this meeting. Thank you.